Hello audience. Yep, finally got a proper hood for this, and we're going to install it. And here it is, brand new. I got this for $425, not including tax or shipping. Now, as a general rule, for sheet metal, you either replace everything brand new, or everything should be restored original. Because you put this next to a restored original part, and there is going to be a noticeable workmanship difference if you look closely. At least more often than not, that's the way it ends up. Now, if this truck had a complete original hood, I'd probably just restore it and use it, even if it was pretty rough. That, however, wasn't the case. There are a few clean original ones out there for a lot cheaper than this, but I decided to buy this anyway for a few reasons. Now, one reason is, this doesn't really need anything. It's not exactly good to go right out of the box, and it's probably going to need to be adjusted a little to make it fit, but it doesn't need to be restored. Because even a decent original hood, it's probably going to have a few failed paint jobs on it that need to be removed. It's probably going to have dents, some rust damage, and they have cracks in them. Sometimes they've been welded, sometimes the welds have heat warped them, sometimes the welds are defective and they're cracking open again. You can run into a lot of problems trying to restore an original hood. I typically do everything myself, but if you had to pay someone by the hour to fix all this stuff, that can really add up. Second, there's no guarantee it's not going to fail in the future. Sometimes they can start cracking open later on. It may have repaired cracks in it that are defective and start coming back after it's painted. That typically doesn't really happen, but it is a concern. This, however, none of the metal's fatigued. It's all bare metal. Once I paint it, I know the paint's going to hold up, and it's going to last pretty much as long as a paint job on a modern car. There's not really a right or wrong answer to this, but you can buy your way out of any of these problems by just buying a new one, and at the moment it's appealing to me, so I went with that. And looking at it as is, it actually fits pretty well. It's centered pretty good. The hood line is parallel to the radiator shell and to the firewall, pretty much. The gap on the top, it's a bit tight on the right side, a little more loose on the left, but that's kind of getting picky. But I think I can do something about that. The worst problem I see is the hood sides. They don't curve in enough here. And they should stick up a little bit here, because it's not fitting here just right, but that I could probably leave alone. So, looking at it, first thing to notice is the hood's touching here and there's a gap here. If you push that down, the hinge pin lifts up. Now originally these had a slight bend to them right here, so that's what I'm going to do with that. Also, this is curving a little bit here and the shell is straight, so this needs to be straightened out. And then around here, just needs to curve in a little more. Not really a problem. Then on the back, for some reason this has got a slight curve to it that needs to straighten out. And then this needs to curve in a little bit more, and that's about it. Also, while I'm doing all this, I put the hinge pins back in each side to give it a little bit of structure. Actually, you can bend this around pretty good just by hand. And it fits pretty good now. I will admit, when I first put this on here, I thought it could have fit a little better than that. I was a little bit disappointed, but in all fairness, these might have gotten flattened out from shipping. They were really easy to bend, and it only took about an hour to straighten all this out. I probably made it look a bit simpler and easier in the video than it actually was. Both of these top panels I took off and just bent them a little bit at a time, and then I checked them. But still, it wasn't very much. And the hood sides, I didn't do anything to them. They fit pretty good as is. I almost feel a bit guilty about how easy the hood fit. This was not really a typical example of how they are. It's usually a big mess. But then again, as I said in previous videos, I am running an original radiator with the original core in it on purpose because they're still set to the original specifications. And more often than not, when you do that, you can just throw a shell on it, throw a hood on it, and they typically fit pretty good to start with. Anyway, so the next step, I suppose, is to clean it up and paint it. Although in a way, I kind of want to leave it this way, with the hood just dull silver. It kind of looks like one of those expensive European cars from the 20s. Before painting it, another thing to watch out for is there's supposed to be an air gap between each panel on these hinges, and after adjusting these around, that can close it up on the ends. So it's worth checking to make sure there's still clearance, because if there isn't, that'll take the paint off of it. It's about a week later, we got them back, they're painted, buffed out, and ready to go. Now, they didn't really need much of anything. Actually, they didn't need anything at all. It just went over them with a coat of primer, a coat of color, and a coat of clear, and that's it. Now, since there's not much material on it, the definition around the beads, the heads of the rivets, all of this is still really clear, really visible, which looks really good. And yeah, nothing much more to say about that. Next thing to do is assemble it. Now the hinges, I'm actually quite impressed with how they're made, because the pins slide freely in or out of them, but they're not loose once they're installed. However, it is a problem. These do need some kind of resistance on them, because if not, for some reason, these like to slide out of place while you're driving. And I don't know how many times I've seen it where these are aligned perfectly, you drive somewhere, and one of these is stuck out and is digging into the radiator shell. Push it back in place, by the time you get home, it's done it again. So I'm going to distort the ends of one of these so it has an interference fit, so we just need to tap it in a little bit to hold it in place. and it's done. And boy, does it look different. I mean, not only does it look good, but putting the hood on it, just in my mind, this was the turning point. Where the way it was before, it had the wrong radiator and it was leaning forward and all the other stuff. No matter what I did to it, it just looked like a bunch of stuff thrown together any old way. Because that's what it was. But correcting the radiator, relocating the firewall, it looked better. But putting the hood on it, that's when it really transformed in my mind. Because now, it looks like your typical 17 to 22 Model T. Now, I will point out that the way it was configured before, with the wrong radiator and all that, it kind of had its own unique look to it, and it was that way for several years. I had it on tours and parades and other stuff, and it kind of became known as that, and I knew that fixing all this was going to take away part of its history, and I don't know why, but in the back of my mind, that kind of bothered me a little bit. But after seeing it now, it all conforms to the same series and everything matches. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking that. It looks so much better now. This was definitely the right thing to do. I did point out before that the gap with the radiator shell, it's a bit tighter on the right side than the left, and I said I was going to do something about it, but I decided not to. It's good enough the way it is. Next time I take the radiator apart, I'll see if I can do something about that. But best of all, that was the last part on the list, so now this thing's ready to drive. Yeah, it's definitely quieter in here with the new floorboards. And the heat shield is actually working. I don't feel any hot air coming out from around the pedals. So I'm impressed. All that's actually working. Yep, still runs and drives like a Model T. And it still runs and drives. And the speedometer even works now. Pretty much. I could probably adjust it a little and get it a little more accurate, but the fact that it works at all, I'm happy with that. Probably going to leave it. So, this thing is still far from being finished. The bed is still falling apart. I have some plans on building a new one for that. There's a lot of little stuff mechanically that needs to be done with it, but it runs and drives now. It looks presentable from the outside, so I'm going to leave it like this for now and probably get to work on one of the other cars. So anyway, that's it for now. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.